We're on Daf Lamed Zayin, about 10 lines down, a little bit more than 10 lines down from the top. The first word in the line is beget, and we're up to itma. Okay. Now, we have discussed, I believe, in the past that you can't marry a woman who was just recently divorced or widowed until 3 months go by, because then we don't know if, let's say, she gives birth 7 months later, whether or not it's a 7-month baby to the second husband or a 9-month baby to the first husband. Itma. Kidsha b'soch shlosh. So he violated this Isur, and he married an almana or a grusha within 3 months of either her husband's death or the divorce that she got from her husband. Barach. Now, if I understand correctly, the word of barach here means that he didn't consummate the marriage. There was kiddushin, but he didn't have any sort of intimacy with his wife. And now he runs away.
He says run away.
What do you say?
He says ran away.
Right. Barach means he ran away.
Ran away.
What do you say one more time?
Same thing. Didn't consummate the marriage. Ran away.
Right. So now, in effect, the reason why we want him to wait 3 months after her divorce or after she was widowed is so that they shouldn't have an intimate relationship from which she might get pregnant, but we don't know who the father is. But in effect, if he was Barach, we really could accomplish the same goal, even though he's married to her, by just simply waiting till after the 3-month period passes, and then, send him a telegram and come back and return home. So pligi Barach Rav. Chad Omar mishamtina le, Chad Omar eruke mistayet. So let's start again backwards. Sometimes the second sheet is a little easier. Eruke, which by the way is a word that they use even in modern Israel today, interesting, which means that he fled. And this word is used in the army here in Tzal when a person was arik. We don't know where he is. He's a chayal, and I forget what it's called in English. There's a word for it. AWOL. So this guy AWOL and mistaya, he can benefit from it. And really the word mistaya means it's genu, it's sufficient. We've already accomplished our goal, and we know that within a 3-month period, he's not going to be consummating the marriage. Now we go back to the first one, and he says no, Shamtina. Bezdin is going to force him to give a get at the threat of nidui, right? Shamta is a nidui, and we're going to threaten him by saying, my friend, if you don't come back and divorce your wife, we are going to put a zapia. We're going to zap you with a nidui. Avi uvda, the omale rafram, a rukte mistaya. So we didn't know which of the two, Ravacha or Ravav, which held what, but from the story that happened, the actual Maisa, we see that Rafram was the Mekil. He was lenient, and he said, we don't have to force a divorce. We can accomplish the same goal without a divorce. Namely, if we want to know whether, let's say she gets pregnant, who's the father of this child, we will know simply because he's out there, on the other side of the globe, and he won't return until after 3 months. Now, I just want to add one point over here. I don't know if anybody makes this point. I don't see it so far, but in the previous Gemara that we learned about, the husband was a Kohen. And if we force him to give a get because he violated this Isur, he'll never be able to remarry. And the Gemara comes to the conclusion that he has to give a get. The only nafkamina is in a non-Kohen situation after he divorces. So will we allow him to remarry her? That was Machlok Shri Rav Meir and the Chachamim. But in the case of a Kohen, the whole issue is irrelevant because there's no way that he can remarry. But if I was his legal counsel, I would recommend that he just fly the coop, because the Gemara seems to assume, at least according to Rafram, and you maybe get the impression that we pass like that, that in this case where he AWOLs, we're not going to force him to give a get. So that's great news for a Kohen. Okay. Now the last part of the Mishnah addresses the case of a Yavam who implemented Yibum, and as it turns out, she is a Muberes, she's pregnant, and Baruch Hashem, she gave birth to a viable child, Ben Kayom. Safek Ben Tesha. Okay, so fine. Now we know that his Yibum is valid. Why? Because she gave birth to a Vlad of Kayom. But what are you assuming? Are you assuming that the Vlad of Kayoma is the late husband, the late brother's Vlad? And therefore the Yibum is valid? But wait a second, we don't know. I mean, if he was Miyavim or immediately and he didn't wait the 3-month period, we're not sure who is the father of this Vlad. So we're left with a suffix. And the Mishnah says that in this case of a suffix, she might be an Eishes Ach, which is an erva with a Chiv Kari Storaisa. And if you have a suffix, whether you violated an Isur Kares, then you bring what's called an Asham Tolu. So the Mishnah says that both he and she, the Yavama and the Yavam, have to bring an Asham Tolu. If he doesn't able.
No, if he shares the baby, and
right.
Yeah. Yes,
again on the suffix. Maybe
that's why
right, maybe it's his Vlad. So now the Gemara is confused. What confuses the Gemara? I don't understand. Lema halachacha rov nashim, berov nashim letisha yolna. Most women gave birth carrying full term after 9 months. And if that be the case, then this baby would have to be the son of the dead brother. Like the only tzad to say that maybe the baby, the father of the baby was the live brother, was to say that it was a Ben Shiva. But if we have a rove, then we can assume it's a Ben Tesha. Let me just make sure I got the mathematics here. He writes, Zusha Yolda, Shiva Chadoshim Liachar Ayibu, by She'ena Vlad min Hasheni El min Harishon, because we don't assume it's a ben Shiva, we assume it's a ben Teisha. And she gave birth 7 months after the Yibum. So it must be, based on this role, we can't, not must, but most likely, the baby was conceived before the death of the Yavam, right? 2 months earlier. Nimsa sheyesh ben li'achames. The Avru Hayavam Hayavama al Iser Eshes Ah. The Chayavim B'Karban Chadov. That's the nature of this kasha of Rava. Why does the Mishnah say that he and she will bring a karban asham? It should be a karban chatos, because she is Eshes Ah, an erva with a chiv kars without a mitzvah yibum, because the vlad belongs to the first brother, the brother that died, and there is no yibum. I guess the classic case of a karban asham talui is when it's 50-50. We don't have any rove. And a karban chatas would be justified even if you have a doubt, but at least it's a rove. And here we should have a rove telling us that there's a chiyuv kares here. And that should be enough to generate a chiyuv chat.
The Asham color is 50-50.
50-50. Like, for example, you have a part of the animal which might be chalev, it might be basal. So you don't know if it's chalev or not. It depends where you took it out of. So we really don't know. And we can't identify it, and he ate it. So he brings an asham tolo. So Rav Nachman, to whom Rav had addressed the question, gives Rav a very strange answer. He says to him, Nishidi dan l'shiva yoga. Now, again, I'm not talking about the biology. I don't know why this would be so, but let's just grant that the biological facts on the ground are correct. But the word didan, if I understand correctly, means in our gegen, in our backyard. This is what we used to. Women give birth, I don't know if it's most women give birth after 7 months, or it's so common that there's no rove and it's 50-50. I'm not sure what he means here, but he's trying to explain the Mishnah. I mean, that's what Rav had a problem with. The Mishnah says that the Yavam and the Yavam have to bring a karban asham tolu. So he's saying, Rav Nachman, but in our area, let's say he lives in, I don't know, we'll call Pupadisa, just make up a name. Our ladies give birth after 7. So therefore it becomes a suffix, and it's an asham tolu. So Rav turns to Rav Nachman and says, Nashi didchu haviru b'di'alma? And the Mishnah has to paskin for every lady on the face of the globe. The Mishnah is not paskin for your backyard, your hilchus pupadisa. So now Rav Nachman is going to clarify what he meant. You misunderstood me. And it had to have been that this was misunderstood, because it doesn't make sense that Rav Nachman would say that our ladies here locally are different, and therefore the Mishnah is justified by being Machai v'Karban Asham Tolu. This is what I meant to say. Rov Nashim Yoldos Leticha Miut L'Shiva. I agree that the biology means that women give birth after 9 months. But Kol Yoldos Leticha Ubra Nikar L'Shlish Yomel. Right? If you divide up the 9 months to 3/3, then already after the first trimester of pregnancy, she already shows. Right? The vlad is already developed enough that she shows. But in this case, where the Yavam jumped the gun and he was miyabing the Yavama in the middle of 3 months. Right, we're waiting until 3 months pass by. So let's say the father died. I'm sorry, the brother died on the 1st of January, correct? And the Yavam was miyabim January, February, March on the 1st of March, correct? We waited a month, the 1st of April, and she's not showing. The fact that she's not showing would have to indicate that the father of the child is the Yavam. But on the other hand, we said that the father in Hukar, right? If immediately after the Yibum she was showing, that would certainly indicate that the late brother, was the father. But here's a case where Lo Hukar, for Israel Rov. What does that mean, Israel? And if she was showing, that would mean that it's from 7 months. But if she's not showing, then apparently she wasn't pregnant during the lifetime of her late husband.
The road is weakened.
No.
The road is weakened.
Just give me a minute, David. I'm sorry, I got messed up with the mathematics here. It looks like we're trying to create a race on the which would therefore indicate we were saying that he should bring a chatos because it's a benteisha l'rishon. I'm sorry, it's a benteisha l'rishon, right? So the tzad for a violation of an isa kares, which means that there's no yibum, is that the vlad is a benteisha l'rishon. Correct, benteisha l'rishon. So the Gemara says that should be a chatos because we have a rov. So the rov is telling me that it's a benteisha l'rishon. Now we have a raise on because she should have been showing. If it's a benteisha l'rishon, then already after the first trimester she should have been shown. Is yesh reisa shemare es halichach harov gabei. And with this reisa, we have reason to believe that this flood might be actually a ben sheva l'sheni, to sheni meaning the yavam, and therefore we have a suffix situation without a row, and that generates a chiyuv korban osher. Oh, elarei b'suffix imi yoledes rov noshim leachar tisha chadashim for who ben Rishon. O kimiyat sheyoldos l'shiva chadashim who ben Hashem. L'chein ein meviim korban chatos ela oshem talui. So the rov would have indicated that the yavam is the father of the child. Only the miyut would have done. But now that we have a reisa, I had it, now I lost it. Again, the mathematics is what? That if we rely on rov, that she gives birth after Teisha, then they certainly have to bring korban chatos because Teisha means from the late brother. But if it was from the late brother, and that's why it's a ben Teisha, then we should have we should have seen hukar uber. So what's the Gemara's problem now? Kol hayoldos l'tisha. Say kol hayoldos. Oh, all right. So word kol is lav daf. Doesn't mean kol hayoldos. But generally speaking, if a woman gives birth after full term, ubra nikar l'shlish yomel. So what's the Gemara's kasha now? Ha, this woman, midalo hukar l'shlish yomel, is ubra vadai bar shiva levasra. Right? Had this woman been pregnant at the time of her husband's death, and therefore the vlad that she's carrying belongs to the husband, then why didn't she show? If she didn't show, it must be that this baby that's born 7 months after the Yibum is the son of the Yavam. And therefore she and he should not even be required to bring an asham. There's not even a suffix, right? The absence of nikar ha'ubar should be proof positive and tip the scale in favor of ben sheva l'sheni. And if she's a ben sheva l'sheni, then the yibum was a valid yibum. So I don't know, how far is the Gemara going here? Is the Gemara now going as far as to assume that because of the lack of huber, the absence of hukar ubar after 3 months, that means that the marriage through Yibum is 100% valid marriage? Is that how far the Gemara is going? I don't know. But Ela Ema, Rov Yoldas Latisha Ubra Nikar L'Shlish Yomea, V'haim Elo Hukar L'Shlish Yomea, Israel Lo. So somehow the Gemara in the Havamina thought that this situation of the absence of hukar uber is such a powerful indicator. Again, I wouldn't say it's 100%, but it's enough of an indication to completely knock out all the roads, right? The road was indicating that the baby belonged to the other, right, to the deceased. Forget about that road. That road is completely wiped off the halachic map. Why? Because lo hukar ubar. Gemara says, wait a minute, you're making a mistake. Lo hukar ubar, okay, let's give it 60%, 70%, I'll grant you. But that's enough to set up a race on the road. That road, nashim yoldos liachar tisha yomim, which means that the baby belongs to the father, to the previous, the deceased, the other brother. So we're left in a sense with one rove against another rove. There's like a clash between the two roves. Because one rove says that the baby is a ben tisha. The other rove says, well, if it's baby's ben tisha, why didn't we see her showing? So what do you do in a case where you have one rove against another rove? You chayim a korban asham tol. And as you pointed out before, David, for sure, he's going to have to divorce her. I would even go a step further. Maybe this is what you meant. That not only does he have to divorce her, but he also has to give a chalitza. Because the get that he gives her is not going to be matir her on the side that this blood was born to the second, to the other, which is a 50% chance. Now that we put the two robes once against the other, we're left with the suffering. I think she would need both chalitza and a get. Tana Rabban. Now let's point out one thing before this Tanur Rabban. The Vlad, in this case of the Yavam that jumped the gun, and he was miyabim prematurely, meaning within that 3-month period, the Vlad is kosher. We don't know who the father is, but on the side that this Vlad is a bentisha l'rishon, if you follow me, then for sure he's a kosher. Ella, what you're going to say? Well, maybe he's a ben sheva l'sheni. Well, if he's a ben sheva l'sheni, then he was Makai the mitzvah Yibum. So no matter how you slice the cake, the Vlad is a kosher. Tanur Rabbanan, Rishon, I'm not sure what he means by Rishon, is Roy Elios Kohen Gadol. It's interesting because we once said that if we don't know who the father is, even though Mimar Shach he's a Kohen, we said that he can't do the avoda because we need to know for sure who his father is. But I don't know. But anyway, here it says Roy Elios Kohen Gadol. Oh, Sheni. Now we get to Sheni. Sheni is a mamzer misafek. Why is the Sheni a mamzer misafek? If the Rishon is actually the son of the deceased, then we're dealing with an Isser Eishes Ak. And that would generate mamzeres because an Isser Karetz. Again, how is the Rishon different than the Sheni? In the case of the Rishon, Rishon is definitely a kosher mimonash. The Sheni, a little bit tricky. Why? She might be an Sean. Once again, I got stuck a little on the mathematics. Why is there a difference here between the Rishon and the Sheni? Rishon said the Manashach is kosher. Sheni. Yeah, because the Sheni was definitely a son of the Yavam. But that makes him into a Safek Mamzer, because if he's the son of the Yavam, we don't know whether there was Yibum. That doesn't apply to the Rishon, because if the Rishon is the son of the Yavam, then there was no Yibum, and therefore there's no Eishasah. No, I got that wrong. If the Rishon, right, that he was the Rishon, and if the Rishon is the son, then he's a kosher. Right, see, once we introduce the suffix that maybe the Rishon, when I use the word Rishon, you know what I mean? I mean the one who passed on. Right? If we introduce the possibility that the Rishon is the father, then we get a Miman of Shach that the child is kosher, because what are you afraid of? You're afraid that she was carrying the baby of the Rishon, of the deceased, so then for sure he's a kosher. But when you get to the Sheni and you introduce the possibility that the Rishon was the son of the, meaning Rishon, meaning the first baby that was born, was the son of the Rishon of the deceased, then the Sheni now, who's definitely the son of the Yavam, is a mamzer because of the Yisrei Shesach. Rabbi Elazar and Yaakov Omer, Ein mamzer misofa. Micah Omar, what does this mean? Ein mamzer misofa. I mean, we have a suffix mamzer here. There's no question about it. Omer Abai Hochi Kamon. A reach on royal Leos going on. Lasheni suffix mamzer. The Osur b'mamzeres. According to the Tanakama, a suffix mamzer cannot marry a mamzeres. Why? Because maybe he's not a mamzer. If he's not a mamzer, he's not allowed to marry a mamzeres. And Rabbi Elazar and Yaakov Omer, the Sheni is not a suffix mamzer, elavadei mamzer, and therefore mutar b'mamzeres. Now, why would Reb Shimon say that the Sheni is a vadai mamzer? That doesn't make any sense. You know what I think he means? Vadei mamzer means that we consider him as if he was a vadei mamzer for the sake of being matir marriage to a mamzeres. The question is, can he marry? He can't marry a Bas Yisrael Kshera because he's a suffix mamzer. L'chori shouldn't be able to be able to marry a mamzeres because he's a suffix that he's not a mamzer. Comes on Reb Shimon, and he says, since it's a suffix that he might be a mamzer, we're going to allow him to marry a mamzeres. Well, what's the logic behind that? Is there a Rashi here, mutar b'mamzeres anywhere?
There's a Rashi, but he says here, Rabbi Elazar maintains that a possible mamzer is not forbidden to marry mamzeres. Rather, the possible mamzer is, in regards to marrying mamzeres, no different from a definite mamzer who is permitted to marry mamzeres. In Rabbi Elazar's view, the Torah forbids mamzer or mamzeres from marrying into the congregation of Hashem. It forbids them only from to marry with definitely pure Jews.
Avadi kosher.
Yeah, but not with those who are possibly mamzerim themselves. And he said, let's see more below in Russia.
I'm looking for the Rashi high and low. I'm not finding it. I'm sure it's right in front of my nose. Oh. It's probably a little bit lower down on the page. Oh, there it is. There's a Rashi. Laza Omer Ein Mamzer Misafa. Do we have that language? Ein Mamzer Misafa. Well, for the time being, that's what we have. El kavadei mamzer avi umutim imbaseret kasama sveikam b'mad v'vadei mut. Okay, this is really belongs to a parak in Kedusha called Yuchsin. Sorry, Yuchsin. Remember that? The last parak of the fourth parak of Kedusha. Rav Omar Hachi Kamar. The Tanakama says Rishon Roy Leos going on with Sheni Mamzer Vadai Misafet. Umutar b'mamzeres. So since there's a suffix, if he's a mamzer, therefore, we consider him like a mamzer. Father, he's allowed to marry a mamzeres. Rabbi Lozer, Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, Ein dino shel safek mamzer kivada mamzer misafek. El dino kesafek mamzer be aser b'mamzer. It sounds like Rob is switching everything around. I mean, we had Rabbi Lazar, Ein mamzer misafek, and therefore mutar b'mamzeres. That's what Abaye, right? So Rav is saying no, that according to Rabbi Lezer and Yaakov, Ein vadai. Ein vadai mamzer misafek. Right, in the case of you can't grade him or categorize him as a vadai. He's a safek. Mamzer be also mamzeres. I don't know who he can marry. Maybe I can marry Gioros. Anyway, so according to Rava, the Tanakam is the one who holds that safek mamzer with regard to marrying a mamzeres has the status of a vadei mamzer. Not Rabbi Lozer ben Yaakov as Abaye would have it, but rather the Chacham. This reminds me of a phrase in the Gemara called Michlefat Shitas. I don't know if I don't see anyone mentioning that, but that's l'chora what's going on. Michlefat Shitas. But it's Dafka Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov, according to Rabbi's version, who prohibits him, the Sheni, right, from marrying a mamzeres. And it's Dafka the Chachamim who allow him to not marry mamzeres, which is the exact flip opposite of Abaye. Okay, then? So this is where we'll. Okay, thank you. I think Steve is going to join us, so I think either beginning of next week or the middle of next week. Now in Chicago. All right, call to